Hello everyone, welcome to Ranked in Review, the show where I talk about my previous ranked games so we can all join into my suffering together. Now, let's hope to learn some stuff here. The first thing that I want to touch on is the start that I'm going for. In this game, I'm going from speed to blue and then to the harpies, to which then I can gank mid or get mid harpies. This start is good simply for that reason. You want to get control of mid harpies as the jungler or mid, as it's going to slowly build up a lead over time, and making it so that you don't have to walk all the way from blue to the mid harpies after already clearing out this back camp that I'm approaching now, well, it's a little bit of a walk. So with this start, you actually are going to be level 2, you're going to be able to get to the mid camps faster, and if the enemy mid happens to be out of position, which they weren't in this game, then I can go and, get a gank off. But we secure the mid camps, all is well, and then we're going to talk about the first mistake I made. Now, the most important thing that you can do in these games is establish who is in what role. I failed to do this game. Up until this point in time, I actually thought that we were dealing with, should have been dealing with Vamana in the jungle, Nox support, Amaterasu in solo, and then, Scylla Chiron in mid ADC, whatever. That's not the case. We're actually dealing with Scylla jungle. And whenever you're dealing with people that are playing non-meta picks, you have to look to abuse them before they get to their power curve. Now, Scylla obviously is not a very strong early game pick, and I honestly don't think it brings too much into the jungle, especially against an Awilix who, if I'm being completely honest, the whole reason I picked Awilix was to counter Scylla. Now, we're going to immediately start looking to abuse this Scylla, because if Scylla gets to late game, we're going to be in trouble. So the way that we're going to look to abuse this, because now that we know that Scylla is in fact the jungler, we're actually going to look to invade speed buff on cooldown. The way that we can know when their speed buff is going to spawn is pretty easy. Since both junglers are going to be doing a very similar start, their speed buff timers are also going to be sharing a very close cooldown. And it's at about this point here where my speed buff has 10 seconds left on it that I am making a concerted effort to go to their speed buff, because I know that if I can test Scylla on that buff, I'm going to win that fight. I also know by looking at my map that both the duo, mid, and solo all have pressure, which, sets me up for this. So we're going to ignore the fact that I suck shit and missed my third ability, which would have secured the kill. But I still get the speed buff. We're still looking to exert our pressure. We're already having some dominance, and we've stolen a speed buff. And for those of you that don't know, stealing a speed buff is a pretty good way to tilt a jungler and to set them behind, because now they're slower, we're going to take their back camps too, and then on top of that, me, as the enemy jungler who's doing all the stealing, still gets to go back and farm up my entire half of the jungle pretty much uncontested. Now, next mistake I make is not just immediately crippling out the Nox. Janus might have been able to get the kill. At the very least, I'm not upset. We're making the Nox at least know that we're there, and we're kind of just playing mind games. Now, I'm farming. I'm going to finish farming up my side of the jungle, and then I'm going to be backing to get our warrior tabby, which is just a good mobility and power spike for Awilix. I don't recommend ninja tabby. You don't get too much value out of the attack speed boost. So as we continue on our merry way, I'm going to keep trying to get, little picks off on mid, because if I eventually hit a third ability on someone, I might actually be able to set myself up for a gank, but in the meantime, I know that their speed buff is coming up, and with the pressure that we just gained in mid, it's going to be pretty easy for me to jump over and then start taking it. I'm not worried about Scylla. I know I have secure, and Scylla's only level 3. Now, this is going to be pretty easy. I honestly was waiting this entire time for Scylla to dash away, because I thought I'd be able to pull her back in, but it hit me afterwards that Scylla did not opt to get her dash yet, which just means that they're going to fall even further behind. You'll notice at this point in the game, I'm already up 3 levels, and I'm already going and stripping the jungle away from them again. This is where things start to get a little bit out of control for them, and they really have to work on securing their own jungle and maybe sending the whole cavalry in just to make sure they can get the speed buff and their buff timers away from us. Now, this is a good gank. I know that the Amaterasu dashed in, which is setting us up. I honestly was trying really hard to pull the Amaterasu onto the in between the pillars so that the Ganesh would be able to do damage, but no such luck. We still get the kill, because the best part about Ganesh ult is you can't leave it without taking damage, so it's either get smacked by us or get destroyed by the pillars. Now, that being said, since we do get another round of stealing, we get to do another round of free farming of our own jungle, and then it's just time to keep on farming. The best way to farm, honestly, is to just always look at what's about to come up and then try and go there. You'll notice that even for this speed buff, I was there right before it spawned, and then I can see that mid is coming in a tower without my mid laner being there, and then I've got red buff spawning, and then back harpies. After back harpies, since there's nothing left to farm, that is the perfect time for me to go and back. Now, as fate would turn out, I actually didn't want to back. I decided I'm going to make a pretty clean pass at mid here. The instant knock up, and then we cripple, it's just a lot of damage. At this point in the game, when you're level 8 as Awilix with full boots, your second ability, if you can go and get it on the right part of the attack chain, is going to deal a ton of damage. And, perfectly timed, it's time for a speed buff invade. Speed buff after speed buff after speed buff. I just want the speed buffs. Scylla was late to the party. We know that she's level 4. I do not want to pull her there. I want to pull her as she's dashing because that eats the dash cooldown and pretty much guarantees that I'm going to be able to get that kill. Even though Scylla beadsed and didn't like take the damage from the ult, while they're beadsing, they still are going to then fall to the ground. So at the very worst, it's like a knock-up. Now, since I'm very low on mana, I'm actually telling my solo laner that I'm not coming to gank, even though it looks like I'm going to go gank, and that's just an important bit of communication. From there, we're going to pick up the Jotun's Wrath for cooldown, and then it's right back onto the farming train. So at this point in time, I'm actually feeling pretty fed, and this is what I'm going to call a power check, where you make a really stupid play and you kind of force something, and you almost get away with it, and then you remember that you're actually not invincible, and even if the enemy team kills you, you just kind of feel bad about it. The only thing I would change is by not forcing that engagement so hard. Forcing engagements like that is never really a good idea. I tend to make that mistake of getting like a really huge head and then trying to like run at the enemy team. More often than not, it's something I'm working on. Anyways, no harm, no foul. We're back on the farming train, and we know that speed buff just spawned. I have my speed buff, I'm going for their speed buff, and I know that Scylla is still not a threat. She's low. I actually kind of whiffed the animation from the third ability. I should have just looked for the ult. I should have assumed and known that she was going to look to dash away. I kind of dropped a kill there, so I'm upset. But no matter what, we get to go, we get to keep farming, and that's another speed buff that the Scylla doesn't get. You'll notice at this point in time that I'm still doubling her in levels. And now I'm going to set myself up for a gank in solo. Now, I do have the option to jump over this wall, or I do have the option to try and pull her in. I was looking for the pull, but it looked way easier to just go and gank him like this. We almost dropped this kill because I'm bad with the attack chain thing apparently this game. But we get another kill on solo, which is going to make our Ganesh, have a little bit of an easier time. Because I'll admit, Amaterasu's really strong right now, and Ganesh is not a traditional solo. Then we're rotating over to mid. We miss our third ability because why not? But then we immediately redeem ourselves by catching the dash, and then we immediately choke again by forgetting that we should hit a follow-up auto attack. In the end, it doesn't matter too much because, Xing Chen goes pretty deep, and then we kill Vamana too. And the fact that I don't die and live with 20 HP is, the cherry on top that ends the entire game. Thank you for coming to this first video. I've got more videos like this planned. And yeah, leave your comments in the comments section. There's more things that I want to cover, and it's really interesting watching this stuff back and realizing how trash I am at the game.